So hello everybody and welcome to this little tutorial on how to make a face mask. I hope it's going to be very useful and that you actually do enjoy making it. This mask is called the Olsen Mask and it was designed by legendary nurse Lila Mae Olsen from Minnesota in the 1930s, and it's wonderful that we are able to use this design today during this pandemic. You can see here it's shaped to go over the nose and quite far down over the mouth, and it's got a bit of wire in here to make it fit more snugly over the nose area, and it's got elastic to go over the ears. And then we have a section in here which is for the filter paper to slot inside, which is obviously very important, and that can be removed and replaced. So some thoughts about what fabric to use. The recommendation is to use a cotton or a polycotton that can be washed at a high temperature. That's probably key to this. Maybe test that out so that you don't have something that's going to shrink. But I think more importantly is that you choose a fabric that has got a tight weave. So if you hold it up to the light, you haven't got a lot of light coming through, and that's really key. And you can have fun with all the different patterns, make it very jolly. Use up scraps of fabric that you might have lying around, or even use some of your clothes perhaps that you might throw away, but it's actually perfect for the job. The mask is made up of 3 pieces. So we've got the inner section where the filter sits. So you have the mouth section and the cheek section. And then the outer layer, you've just got the whole face. And then you will have a filter pattern. So one of the first things that you're going to do is to decide on which size you're going to make. So we have a woman's size, and that means that you will cut away all the black lines. Or you could go for the men's size and cut along the black lines. So for the women's size, you're going to cut the black line away. For the men's size, you're going to leave the black line. So you're going to cut out your pattern pieces, and I think it's much easier if you have a contrast between the outside of your mask and the inside. It makes making up a lot simpler and less complicated. So you're going to cut out and just make sure that you have got the grain line here following the grain line on your fabric so that it's straight and that you haven't got the grain line going across. So what we want to do is mark this line on the fabric. We've only got a 5mm seam allowance, so don't be tempted to snip here. I would just fold it back and just do a little mark either side. So you have your 4 pieces here, your 2 inner cheek pieces and your 2 inner mouth pieces. And what you need to do is to hem this here, a 1 centimetre hem on that edge and on this edge here and here. So what I would suggest is that you press it first, and then you can do a double hem here, or the other alternative is to overlock or zigzag that edge and then just stitch it down. Now that you've hemmed these edges, you're going to place this inner mouth to that placement line here. And you're going to pin and then stitch these in place. So this is anchored down here at 5mm from the edge. So with these now stitched in place, we're going to stitch the two pieces together on this nose line, so with right sides of the fabric together, and you're going to stitch 5mm from that edge there. When you stitch this seam in here, you can zigzag, or if you have an overlocker, overlock that to stop it from fraying. So with this zigzag, I can then just trim down to the stitching, making sure you don't cut through the stitching. So you've got your inner and outer pieces stitched. You're going to then press this so that this seam line is crisp. Now that those seams have been pressed, you can take one of the sections, turn it to the right side, and then you're going to place one inside the other with the right sides of the fabric facing each other, and line up the seams and pin all the way around the edge. So the two sections are now pinned all the way around, and you're now going to stitch all the way around. That's 5mm or half a centimetre from the edge. So I've stitched all the way around, and I've also zigzagged that edge to stop it from fraying, because it might get quite a bit of wear, and also with washing, especially if your fabrics are going to fray, I would recommend it. And then trim down all the way around. So now we're going to turn it through to the right side by one of these slits here. So the whole thing gets turned through. What you want to do is to get right into these corners and get them nice and neat. So I've got a turning tool here that is a blunt point, so don't use a pair of scissors to do these corners, because you'll just go straight through. Or you could use the end of a pen or the end of a paintbrush, anything that's a blunt tool, and just kind of find your way into the corners like that. So we've got everything turned through, and then you're going to go and press this edge here. So a little tip is to roll that edge like this between your fingers as you press, and you get a nice crisp edge there. So this next stage is actually optional, and this is inserting the wire here, but you don't have to have a wire in there, but it does make it fit a lot tighter across the nose. So you can use bag ties, which are already coated in plastic, or you could get some wire and then wrap it in electrical tape. Then this will obviously make it a bit safer and haven't got a cut edge there. Even on the bag ties, it has a bit of a sharp edge, so maybe a bit of tape across that edge there would be worthwhile. So I have wrapped a bit more insulation tape, electrical tape, just on those edges and just enclosed that edge there. So now what we're going to do is insert the wire up into that nose piece. So you're finding the middle of the wire and you're going to slip it up into there and just pin in there, and then you're going to stitch a little channel to hold that wire in place, just making sure that you don't hit the needle on the wire itself. So now that has been stitched and your wire is securely enclosed within that stitch line. So now I'm actually going to put a little pleat in at this edge. That's because I prefer it to be narrow, but you could leave it this wide. It's just about 1 centimetre pleat is enough. I'm going to pin, and then I'm just actually going to anchor that down with a stitch here. So this edge has now been stitched at 1.5 from the edge. That's going to be your fold line for your casing for the elastic to go through. And what you're going to do is just stitch down that edge. So the elastic is about 18 centimeters, but you can make it longer and then tie it off to fit, or you can use a hair tie. So the elastic is trapped now, and you can either tie a knot. That knot can get hidden down inside there, or you could stitch through once you have measured and got it feeling comfortable. So now your mask is complete, and all you've got to do is cut your filter paper and insert it into the gap between the two layers. So this can be a bit fiddly, but a very important part of this mask. So that is a removable filter that you can throw away and replace each time that you've worn your mask. Most importantly, have fun making it.